on the MrMaple Show podcast, Corbin and Sean count down the top 25 Japanese maples for focal point planting.
Howdy, Maple family. It's the MrMaple Show podcast, and we are back with another countdown. We are counting down today the top 25 Japanese maples for a focal point planting.
Hey, this is Corbin, man. Thanks for getting me on this. I know I'm a pretty good focal point out there in the garden too, man.
We're always looking. But hey, before we jump right in, let's go through the motions. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. And check out MrMaple.com. It's because of that we're able to sit here and talk about trees with y'all. Hey, you just want to jump right in?
Let's do it, man.
So before we just start going down this list of top 25 focal point Japanese maples, let's talk about what is a focal point. And if you just randomly say, go to Google and Google what is a focal point planting, they're saying it's a striking plant that has a unique shape and a dramatic, ornamental aspect that draws you in. And I always kind of looked at it myself when doing landscape design is it's kind of the tree that you kind of build and design your whole entire garden around.
Yeah, focal points are going to be super important, and they come in a lot of different ways. Certain different areas in the gardens can have a different need for a focal point. So I think this list is a great set of examples of not every single one of these trees is going to work in your space, man. That's why there's 25 of them. Hey, if one of those 25 doesn't work, there's going to be a pretty good chance you can hop on MrMaple.com, find that perfect tree for your location, because this is all kind of suggestion, we love maples, but it's all a subjective thing right here. So, and Sean's got this awesome list of stuff that I'm excited to talk about, because as you kind of go through here, we got a nice list of stuff that's a little bit more common to a lot of people that they might understand. We get a little bit more into the rare stuff, but this is all going to be great stuff to have in your garden in those areas to kind of, whenever I think about focal points, I'm thinking like that wow moment,
Right. And keep in mind, you don't just have to have, sometimes you say focal point, and sometimes you think singular. I'm only going to have this one tree as my focal point and build around it and design around it. But keep in mind, you can have more than one focal point in your landscape, in your garden. Hey, let's go ahead and jump right in. At number 25, we have Acer palmatum bloodgood. And you might be wondering, bloodgood on a list as focal point, but think about it. This is the tree for a lot of people that started them down that journey of Japanese maples. How often do we at open houses talk to people, say, I went to a big box store and I bought a bloodgood, and now it sent me down that rabbit hole. I wanted more. But man, bloodgood, how many times, especially, go back into the 80s, where it kind of really started with bloodgood, but how many people over these years, for the last 30, 40 years, you drive down the street, your neighbor, and you go, whoa, what is that red tree in their landscape? And, for a long time, 99% of the time, it's Acer palmatum bloodgood.
Bloodgood is an amazing tree. From that other perspective too, that Sean mentioned earlier, to the other side of the coin of that, for me, it's kind of a little bit different. For me, I didn't start with bloodgood. I got introduced, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are listening now. They came across the YouTube because, they saw some flashy maple that just caught their eye. And that was me too. We were just talking outside with Brian, and whenever you first get started and you really get open up to the world of maples, you really want to chase that shiny thing. But then as you kind of, start collecting some of these variegated plants, you really don't want to forget about these classics, because like Sean and I were talking, there's a reason that they're classics. It's not because they don't have merit. It's because these trees have stood the test of time. They work in a lot of people's areas, and it's easy to kind of overlook them because they're kind of considered a basic tree now. But as I've continued to grow and kind of develop my horticultural palette, you really come to understand, like, wow, like somebody had the forethought to pick this tree for cultivation, and it still works. It's still like this timeless thing. Like a red Japanese maple will always be in style.
Oh, absolutely. And if you drive down any road, if it's the only Japanese maple you have in your yard and it's a blood good, it's still to this day going to stop people and say, what is that red tree in your garden? That's why it has to make number 25 on the focal point plantings. And like I say, or like you said, man, it's a classic, and it always will have a place in the garden. Moving on, number 24, we have to go with Acer palmatum Mikawa Yatsubusa, the OG Mikawa. Man, to me, Mikawa Yatsubusa, and it's, there's so many different variants out now. Some that are extremely flashy. You start getting into, the variegation of like snow kitten or something like that. But man, this one to me is a tank. I've seen it grown in multiple parts of the country whether it's full sun or whether you have it shaded out some. But man, the unique shape of Mikawa Yatsubusa is always going to, you say that wow factor is always going to make somebody say, what is that? And there's a reason why it ends up on so many lists, even in the number one spot. And probably one of the most popular trees in the country right now is the original Mikawa Yatsubusa.
This was a great tree for me to get started on identifications of maples. Whenever you start working at MrMaple and you have no interest, I had interest in plants, but I had no knowledge of them. Mikawa Yatsubusa, a great tree to get started with identification. And that shows you a little bit of how good it is for, that focal point. I could just go and count all the times where I've seen a Mikawa in its full majesty. And it's that same thing. It's a classic. It's like listening to that Beethoven, man. It's like it was cooked up a couple 100 years ago, but it still has merit. It still has that power and effect. And I think it also speaks to it, man, that this tree, a dead branch of a Mikawa Yatsubusa is visually interesting. Like if a branch is snapped off and you found it had no leaves, no nothing, like you're going to look and study that branch and be like, that's funky. And whenever it's attached to a live tree, it's got leaves on it. it still has that. It's just this alien looking plant. I love how tight and dense the bud terminals are to each other. But man, like you want to see this thing as a focal point, skip ahead a little bit to that fall color. Oh my gosh, dude. The larger the specimen is, the more amazing. Mm-hmm. But like even at a 2-foot size, like this is going to be a tree that's going to make you focus on it. It's going to be something that draws people's attention. It's going to pair really well with a lot of other things, and the texture in the garden that this provides, it is something where it's like anything that's built around this will be better because of that plant. Mikawa Yatsubusa is in the garden with it.
And, that kind of leads right into our number 23, Acer palmatum Shishi Shigeru. This is another one of those that's easy to grow, can be used in multiple different, aspects in the garden, applications, but I think makes such a great focal point because it has such a unique growth habit. The more sun you give it, it's going to get a little bit wider. If you keep it in a more shaded area, it's going to be more columnar. But you can use it in such many different applications with those tight layering leaves, kind of like, Makawa, where you got that shingling effect going on with it. But it's such a tank. But it's another one of those 1700 lists that, and you and I, we've had the honor of going and touring private gardens and also going to, some national gardens and you get in front of one of a large specimen of Shishi Shigeru and you just stand back in awe with how green that it gets during the summer. I even think that there's a bark interest to Shishi Shigeru, and it just, it's such a unique plant. And in all honesty, it was the first Japanese maple I bought because of just how unique the structure is of it. I just think, for a focal point, man, you can build around a Shishi Shigeru.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to witness these, like you were saying, in all sorts of different situations. And I've actually seen the oldest Shishi Shigerus in America. I got to go visit Don Schmidt Nursery, and they had 3 giant Shishi Shigerus back there. I think maybe it was 2. One of them got hit by a vehicle, and they had to get rid of it. But it is, like you said, I've seen this in like 3 different ways, and I'll say all of them are visually interesting. I have seen it, grown where it's kind of this, not spreading, but it's like a very wide tree, very dense, wide tree. And then we actually went to, I think it might have been Dan Averett's garden where he had that columnar variety.
Right.
And oh my gosh, like you talk about just having this tree that can do both of those things. It's so amazing. But then that third, this is a great bonsai tree.
Right.
I mean, in Japan, I saw a lot of Shishigashira bonsai, and I think that may not be something that's interesting to everybody out there, but that is another way to have this tree as a focal point in the garden. It doesn't even need to be in the garden. It just needs to be there. It's going to draw people's attention. It's going to look great, and it can do that in a pot. It can do that as a columnar tree, and it can do that as a wide kind of, that's a focal point. But this tree is going to be a focal point in the garden no matter where you put it.
And moving right along, we got to give some love to lace leaves. A lace leaf can be a great focal point planting. And coming in at number 22, we have Acer palmatum, Baldsmith.
All right, why is this down at 22, man? I mean, this tree is amazing. That's just me. We're kind of ribbing each other on that. But Baldsmith, you talk about a dynamic tree. I mean, I can close my eyes. I got my eyes closed right now for the audio listeners, and I can just see all the Baldsmiths in my head that I've ever witnessed before, and just like that beautiful pink new growth. I think like this one has a very interesting structure and how it like kind of twists and spreads, and it's really, really good if you prune it, because whenever I think about this tree, I'm taken back to Dan Everett's garden. And I don't mean to be kissing Dan's butt or anything, but man, his Baldsmith, it's like people should strive to have one tree that looks that good in their garden. It's like not everything has to look like it, but he kind of did that Miyawaki pruning method where the birds could fly through. And this thing during the fall, if it doesn't look like this hot pink 90s like neon looking tree, I mean, it is just one of the most wild trees I've ever seen.
Well, Brian and I were talking off camera before about Baldsmith, and I was telling him I almost think that Baldsmith can be or is sometimes very underrated as a lace leaf. But what I really like about it is sometimes when it's a smaller specimen, it's not as easy to see it. But if you put this out in the landscape, and you and I talk about this often, but that kind of a 3-year rule that, by the 3rd year, you really see it getting established and doing it. And to me, Baldsmith takes on this like almost like when the light shines through it, this three-dimensional look to it, where you have that older growth underneath, but then you got that pink layer on top. And when the sun shines through it, it is like no other lace leaf. We can talk about all the different stuff, or the different lace leaves out there and how their habits and their colors, but Baldsmith just brings it this whole new, just different look to it, with those pinks on top of those greens. And as a focal point, man, you could just build around that, because it has that kind of that three-dimensional feel to it when the sun shines through it.
Yeah, I mean, I if you're talking about Brian Rule's Baldsmith that he has in his garden, it looks almost like this kind of pink greenish cloud just floating, and I love the shape on his. This is one you're definitely going to want, like, that sun to kind of pass through. It's going to be one you're going to want in an area where you're going to be able to witness it, because it's just super amazing. I think that one is very underrated because of the name. Like, if it had a different name, I think that one would be flying off the shelf. I mean, even seeing 10-gallon trees here at the nursery that haven't been pruned in like a specific style of pruning, they still look amazing. And that's definitely one where I think more people should be interested in that.
Okay, coming in at number 21, we have Acer palmatum Orangiola. And I was thinking, kind of the same line of Baldsmith. But man, Orangiola, when you get to that time of the year, and we just had some amazing ones at our last open house, that whenever someone was looking for Orangiola, it was like, hey, come take a look at these 10 gallons that we had. And at that time, when we had the open house, man, it was green. And then you had the new flushes of growth of red. And then you had some, and I always liked it that Matt and Tim sometimes described it as the 31 flavors, the Baskin Robbins of trees, because you get so much going on with it color-wise, habit-wise, that lace leaf, the way it weeps. Man, it's just such a dynamic focal point tree. But at the same time, like we were talking before, how sometimes when you get enamored with, you walk in and you see some of these flashy, variegated stuff like that. Man, Orangiola to me brings a very nice, refined elegance to the garden. And to build your garden around that, I think just makes it just an excellent focal point tree.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tree in a field of trees that's going to stand out. I really slept on this one for a long time, but I think this tree kind of found me. It is just so dynamic, and I didn't really understand that until I had one at my house. And in the greenhouse, even in the greenhouse, it can look one type of way, because like you're only coming in there every once in a while. Maybe you're only passing by a certain group of trees every once in a while. But whenever you have Orangiola at home, mine, if any of you guys watched the garden walkthrough at my house I just did, this is sitting right next to the sidewalk where I just get to walk past it every single morning. And it looks just a little bit different every single day. And that initial push, and where everything kind of like gets ready for summer and it turns to that green, but then it starts getting, it goes from those oranges to like more of like a deep purple to like having like a hunter green back to something where it's kind of like that bronzing color. Oh my gosh. And then how all those layers are just stacked, like making this like mosaic of color that you can just like look down on and just get lost in it. I mean, does anything kind of describe a focal point plant better than that?
And you also kind of one-upped all of us that have Orangiolas. I have mine at the house, and it really past summer, it really flushed out underneath and filling out. And, it's one of my favorite trees that I have in my collection. But man, you one-upped us by getting yours on a pine bark, man. How'd you pull that off, man? Like, you one-upped all of us. You're like, not only do I get all these colors and foliage and weeping action, but on a pine bark. And yours is on a standard, right? It's a standard on the pine bark.
Oh man, yeah, it's about a 2-foot standard. It's got a genetic mutation on the rootstock underneath, and it's a pine bark. At this point too, I'm kind of like sold on that idea I really think that as, you know, the collector and, I mean, we've already seen it on eBay too. Like, I got very lucky, I'll say. I was walking through the nursery with a customer on an appointment, which you can schedule on Thursdays if you want to come visit the nursery and look at some of the larger stuff. I was walking with her and Logan, which, yeah, Logan's my homie from back in the day. Me and him, we used to tag team the appointments, but we were looking through all these orangiolas, and this super nice lady is, she's like, oh, I want an orangiola, and we went back there. We pulled out a bunch, and I think either Logan or I pulled this tree out, and I was kind of looking at it, and he was kind of looking at it, and like we just noticed that there was just something different about it. And I started looking at this bark on the tree, and it's got just a little splotches of that pine bark. And, you know, I try to be forthcoming with information. I'm not trying to you know, get one over. I'm not that crazy at collecting. So I told the lady, I was like, hey, like, this is a really awesome tree. Like, this is what's happening. And this is actually 2 trees in one. Not that every graft isn't 2 trees on one, but this is 2 genetically interesting trees on a graft together. If you get this, it's going to be kind of this one of a kind thing. And it's going to be cool. I actually would love if we did maybe Arakawa rooted cuttings, or went in, kind of try to select some root, like these pine bark seedlings to graft onto, because I just think that that's like any lace leaf that has grafted onto a pine bark. And I know that might not be as feasible just because of production and everything, but if you can score one of those, that's a must in the garden.
So our next one coming up at number 20, and this one was picked for it. And again, like when I said that you could have more than one focal point planting, because you can lay these out that depending on the time of year, it becomes that focal point planting. So at number 20, we have Acer palmatum osakazuki. Man, we're talking about the tree that when it comes to red fall color, every other tree is going to be compared to it. This is, for many people, this is the best red fall color. So has to come in on the list as a focal point planting, because this Osakazuki is just, like I say, the best, one of the best for red fall color, and will be your red fall focal point.
Yeah, and I'm always playing devil's advocate. I'll be honest, man. I love thinking about ways that you know, other trees can be viewed other than you know what's on that description. And I really love this tree during the springtime. I think like it's kind of slept on. But it's like always, if you look at trees during the spring, as that color emerges, you get that little hint of what fall is. Because
right.
like as all those nutrients and, you know, the chlorophyll on the leaves and the pigment starts to develop inside of it, you're going to see those layers slowly start to build. And Osakazuki, whenever it kind of gets that spring push, and it's maybe a couple weeks into spring, and you still have that just faint pink kind of blush over top of it, with the beauty of the samaros and the fatness of the leaf. I mean, it kind of just takes me back to that early time of spring thinking about it, and just knowing, like with that little tease of that idea of what fall time is going to be
right.
like. It's just awesome. It's like a little Christmas present. It's like, well, here's a hint on what your Christmas present's going to be this year, and you already know it's going to be awesome. So,
and you know, it's one of those stable ones where, like, and when I say stable, I don't mean like, you know, when you're talking about like variegation, reverting. When I say stable, I mean like consistent. You will get a consistent fall out of Osakazuki every single year. It's, you know, you can rely on it that it's going to perform. Just a killer tree. Okay, guys, moving right along. We're coming on to our first non-palmatum on the list as a focal point planting. We're going with number 19, Acer shirasawanum, Bronze Age.
Yeah, I mean, this tree, Talon Buckhalt's introduction, another one of, I know probably people hear me say, this is one of the first trees, blah, 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 this is one of the first trees, but you talk about kind of putting me on that shirasawanum species. I got put on by Bronze Age. Just the beauty of them, how just insane they are. And this is kind of like that same Baskin-Robbins effect, I'll be honest. Like, I think this one kind of shares similar colors to Orangiola in some aspects. Obviously, it's a different leaf shape. It does have different shades during the summertime. Oh, man, but just the dynamicness of this plant, really just like, it's so amazing to just have this beautiful bronze kind of almost like a cherry red color you can get with an inlay of like a lime green or like kind of a yellowy color during that spring leaf, to push into those purples, to push into those kind of like nice greens that you get, to push into even more bronze color. And then, oh wait, we ain't even to fall yet. Like, what the heck?
Well, you talk about that fall, that for Bronze Age, I don't know how many times when your orders would come in and we'd be out there pulling them and we had Bronze Age, how many times I would go pull Bronze Age or go to pull something else and walk past a set of Bronze Age and just think, oh, Japanese maple, Acer Shirasanum. And it really wasn't about 2 years in working here at Mr. Maple, going in during the fall and seeing that fall, that yellow, and just being like, holy cow, that tree is awesome. Tim, one of those is going home with me today. And it wasn't until that next spring that I really took a look at it and watched it leaf out on my own every day, go through that. I'm like, wow. Like you say, it's got that, it's almost like that 31 flavors, kind of like Orangiola. Man, the spring, the way it leaves out and the veining that you can see and that bronzing kind of color that it goes through spring, it's like, man, like that spring is just as enjoyable and pops out just as much. And then going into those summer months, but then like you said, returning to that fall, that yellow, and it was that fall that drew me in. It wasn't even that spring, but then discovering like, man, this is a 3-season plant for sure, and even a 4-season, because the structure of it's a good looking tree even out of leaf. Okay, guys, we're keeping it going, and still yet another non-palmatum at number 18, focal point plantings, Acer japonicum, Yamakagi.
Yeah, I mean, the Mountain Shadow, named Mountain Shadow Yamakage. I mean, I think I saw this tree very first day I showed up. I mean, how could you miss it? It's right in front of our office, and it just has a presence. Like you talk about focal points. Mm-hmm. Anytime I step outside with Sean, maybe he's smoking a cigarette, maybe we're just out there taking a little break from the computer screens, I just am drawn to it, man. There's just so many trees that are in the garden. It's the largest tree in that little display garden that we have. But the large japonicum leaves compared to some of the Makawi Atsubusa forms that we have, some of the weeping lace leaf varieties that we have in that garden. And this is the tree that kind of holds this little garden together. It's that big foundation plant, like right there. It's that big focal point plant that you might start looking at some of the smaller trees because you're closer to them, but your eye is going to get stuck on that trunk and like slowly follow that tree up to have, those giant tropical looking leaves hanging over top of you. Those large samaros and kind of that classic kind of stoic, strong structure that japonicums give you with that kind of stretched out bud terminal. So, kind of like complete opposite of Makawa, maybe a couple less leaves, more stretched out, but it's going to be a stronger structure. It's going to look like, I kind of think of the japonicums are like kind of like the old men of the gardens. Mm-hmm. They really are like some nice bones.
Well, like you say, just the pure size out of it makes it a great focal point. Like you can get those like dinner plate size foliage on it, and then you talk about that structure and just how it just brings out, it pops. But then you talk about the samaras on it, man, it being a bigger leaf like that sometimes we forget that Japanese maples are flowering trees, but some of them are such slow growers. Some of them, and it's also can be conditional that, some of them, depending on the year, may not push out any samaras. You may not get any seed, but man, Yamakagi seems like every year during the spring, you can see those flowers, you see the samaras coming up, those big leaves, but then it being a Japonica, man, you head into the fall, man, you get those Japonicum colors where on one leaf you can have orange, red, a little green left, some purples in there. I mean, like once you get into that, so like you're talking about that during the spring and summer, you got that big, bold presence as a focal point. But then, man, once you get into the fall, the magic starts.
Yeah, I mean, I think an alternative name for this tree could be like Mountain Fire or something like that, because this tree demands you look at it whenever it's fall time. I mean, there are some trees that are, maybe they beat around the bush. They're like, okay, I got some nice fall color. But this tree, the structure of it, the large size of the leaves, it's king in the garden, like during fall time, especially in our little garden we have up front. It almost looks like the house is on fire. And I mean, to evoke that kind of imagery in one's head, like through a plant, I think just like, I love that. And I know I get a little bit, maybe hoity-toity or, a little granola, but I mean, that's just kind of the emotion that some of these trees evoke from me. And I think it speaks to how awesome that one is.
Okay, moving right along at number 17, we got the chameleon maple. We have Acer palmatum, Gable's Glory, and I just saw you go home with one not too recently. And man, this is one, like, I think that term chameleon maple works out so well. It is one of those, again, that is constantly changing. But the reason I had to put this on the focal point list was that, man, every time I go out there and there's Gable Glory around other Japanese maples, it almost seems like the Gable's Glory is always putting on a show and is always taking the attention of, look at me. Nothing wrong with the other maples. They're doing great. They look great. But it being that chameleon maple, man, and constantly changing, it just stands out like nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, how can I give you almost like the shoujo colors during the springtime and then not move from a green? Like, it doesn't move to a green from that. It moves to a yellow. And I mean, like a white yellow. Like, the eye of this tree will have a different color than the margin of the leaf. It's just insane. And to see that slow transition from this kind of hot pink, hot cherry red, to move from maybe that. Just, I love looking at the gradient of this tree. I mean, I think like that's some of the beauty of having a larger specimen. I've never seen a large Gable's Glory in person. I'm most of the time I'm dealing with 1 gallons to 3 gallons. But even on a 1 gallon, to have a gradient like it does in the greenhouse, where you can literally see every single stage of the leaf just by looking from the top all the way down. I mean, that's just like something amazing to me. It's like you literally walked into a Sherman Williams paint store. You picked up, okay, well, give me hot pinks all the way to yellow, and it shows you every color in between. And any tree that is a yellow that kind of gets that sun bleaching effect, that's a winner for me.
Okay, coming in at number 16, and this one I think we can incorporate some other. It doesn't have to be this exact cultivar, but I think it's just the best representation. But I have at number 16, Acer palmatum Sango Kaku. We're talking about coral bark, 4-season interest. And when I say that, it's like, Sango Kakus, I mean, we see them all over the country. We see them used as street trees. And it's almost one of those classics when it comes to the coral bark. But maybe I don't have the space for it. Well, there's like little Sango, or there's other varieties. But so just kind of using Sango Kaku as a placeholder for the wide variety of cultivars that are coral bark. But man, bringing a coral bark Japanese maple into the landscape definitely is a focal point, especially that time of year when the chlorophyll starts to leave that tree and you start to get that coral effect on it, and you can contrast that with other stuff in the garden. And then at the same time, man, that one out at Buckholz, Talon's huge, Sangukaku, like, yeah, even though it, like, as old as it is at large, you don't get that same coloration on the bark. But man, when it gets to that size, the habit of it takes over the interest, the way it grows. And then, man, come fall, that yellow color that it goes to, man, I mean, you can't beat it. You got to bring a coral bark into your landscape.
Yeah, I was definitely happy to get some of that drone footage of that tree in its full fall color, because it's magical. It's like coral barks, obviously the bark interest. I like the leaves of them too. I think most of them have a nice similar leaf that's, nice size, nice shape. But yeah, the fall color is so amazing. And I'm going to say this little point too, but it's like anytime you see a tree that is kind of the, matriarch or patriarch of a whole set of family of trees, like, there's the Makawa Yatsubusa family. Mm-hmm. There's the coral barks. We have certain trees that are kind of the foundation, this building block of a tree. And I think that says so much about it. Is like, all right, we don't just want coral barks. We want a Sangukaku that's variegated. We want a Sangukaku that's miniature. We want a witch's broom off of this. Any sort of difference. And like when you start having like the branches, and I don't mean physical branches, but I mean like a branch of like maybe like a family tree. Exactly. No pun intended. That's really how you know like this tree is good, because it's like somebody's trying to take that further. Mm-hmm. And I think whenever you go with Sangukaku, that isn't just a safe bet. That's something that's calculated. That's something like that's wisdom that other gardeners have kind of, smoothed this down to almost a perfect form. And they're just trying to take it a little bit further each time.
Okay, moving right along. Coming in at number 15, we have Acer palmatum Tomukiyama. As some people know, Tim's turkey mama. But man, I had to throw this on the list, and kind of there in that 15, kind of in the middle there, mark of the list, Tomukiyama. You're talking about a tree over 300 years old, been cultivated for those specific traits. But man, Tomukiyama, man, you can find that all over the country in people's gardens as a focal point, and it's just elegant. It's graceful. The colors you get on it, even in spring, going through, then carrying back into the fall, man, it is just, that weeping habit as a lace leaf, man, I think that as a tree that's been around as long as it is just one of the most killer, appropriate trees for a focal point planting.
Cold hardy, heat tolerant. I mean, the list of like this tree's accomplishments in the garden, and to not just have, this wasn't just introduced 30 years ago, which is a long time in the maple world. This was introduced 300 years ago. And I mean, guys, I drive a Japanese car. They are about quality. They are about efficiency. The whole culture of Japan is that even like the janitor that's sweeping up the stuff, if he has a better idea of how to get stuff done, like they're going to listen. And the fact that this tree is like 300 years old and there's been improvements around it, but that this is still good enough to keep putting out to people, that says it all to me, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm one of those people, I try to listen and learn from other people. And it's like, it should tell you a lot that this tree is that old. It's still in this fast changing industry where, especially now, people are introducing a lot of different stuff. And like, this tree still holds to the test of time. And I'll say, this tree, I love, now listen to this, I love multi-planting of this tree.
Oh, heck yeah.
Like, if you have a possibility of getting a huge, like, high graft of this tree, get other trees that, you know, maybe get something that's half as tall, get something that's way shorter than that, and it works so well as having like a multi-planting of this, just having that height difference. It looks amazing.
Yeah, you get that mounding feature. Like, I mean, yeah, I couldn't agree more. A great mass planting tree. But now we're moving on from talking about something 300 years old to a talon buckles introduction, something that's newer, part of the new ghost, or we're kind of calling the new ghost. But we're talking about at number 14, Acer palmatum Celebration.
Yeah, Celebration. It will literally make you like jump up and down for joy. I feel like, man, it's so amazing too. In the greenhouses, there can be a lot of different microclimates. There can be a lot of, you know, micro conditions that are happening and changing how each different tree can look. And I mean, there is Celebration in a lot of the houses. And you could go and look at one Celebration that looks like this, and then one Celebration that looks like this, and one that looks another way, and one that looks another way. And it's still all Celebration, which I love about reticulated varieties. I think that they have like the most dynamic change in color based on shade situations. And that's like a create your own player. You know, I know Matt and Tim talk about that with like wishing they could create their own maples. But these are like kind of, you know, move this wherever you want, let it grow. But then that's also what's awesome about it. The larger it gets, the more depth it has, the more varieties of color changes you're going to see based on those kind of micro conditional effects inside of the tree. You're going to get all those colors.
Yeah, Celebration to me is one of my, I would say, is on my favorite list for new reticulated trees or newer reticulated trees. Man, I love walking in. When you talk about one, it's reticulated, the spring leafing out, and you get kind of like when you talked before, you kind of get that glimpse of what you're going to get later on down the road. And you kind of get those reds and pinks when it leaves out. And then you see that reticulation come in. And then you head into those summer months, and you start to go where the pigment starts to get to that green with that white reticulation, and then that starts to mature and the leaves start getting greener, but then it starts pushing out that summer growth on top of it, and it is the most intense, bright red new growth. To me, I've walked into greenhouses, or I've seen even bigger specimens out there in the landscape, that you walk out there and it looks like the tree is got flowers coming out of it. It's just so intense. And, you know, like I say, Celebration, I think that's really like when you see, that's such a great name, because when you see that summer growth with that bright red coming out on top of that older growth right there, it just feels like a celebration. Man, just such a great tree. But between all that changing colors, reticulation, and the growth habit, man, it had to be on the list for top 25 focal point plantings.
That's definitely a great tree.
Okay, moving along, coming in at number 13, we have Acer palmatum Ryusin. Man, I cannot think of this tree without thinking of Cindy Bowles' Ryusin that she has in her garden in Texas, and how her placement of it, and she has it staked up maybe a little bit more than 6 foot now, but the way it's staked up and the way it weeps down, man, it is such a attention grabber in the landscape, that weeping habit, and, you know, just how malleable it is and what you can do with it. And I've even seen pictures, you know, get out there on Facebook at the MrMaple group. Man, people have Ryusins posted where they have some older specimens, man, where look at their photos where they have it above, you know, like I like putting it up on a mound where you have something, man, watch that to come down, weep over some rocks or weep off that mound. Man, it is just a all around. And again, with Ryusin, hey man, I had to, you know, kind of like that Sango Kaku, man, we could, you know, apply Dragon Master, Golden Falls, Yellow Cascade, Ghost Cascade. What did we say it? But I mean, that Ryusin Nakakamado weeping, that started all this, weeping lineage like that. But man, all those can be rolled into that Ryusin kind of category. But man, they are just such attention getters in the garden.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that different maples kind of evoke like different elements. I think most of the time, like uprights, depending on their shape, they kind of like evoke this effect of like a fire in the garden to me, especially depending on their color. They can really, really have that effect. But any kind of weeping variety, I mean, it evokes water. And I think that anytime, if you have a pond, if you have that verticality in your garden, you have something that needs some of that, like, and here I go again, getting all hippy dippy, but you need something that has like that kind of like water feel. I mean, put a weeping variety there. It really is amazing. And for me, it's like, I got to see Nakakomoto weeping. And it was just amazing. And it's like, whenever you look at these weeping trees, these kind of trees, the mounding trees, and it does evoke water, man. I mean, all I could think about looking at that huge old tree was just thinking about all the water kind of moving through the tree. And Ryusin, I think on the other side of that too, I think this can be used in a way to give some verticality, because Ryusin can look like some of those weeping Himalayan or weeping Alaskan cedars. It can look like these kind of columnar trees that have this weeping effect, and it kind of looks almost human out there in the garden, like almost like there's this kind of cloaked figure out there in the garden, which I like. That was one of the first things I noticed about Ryusin whenever I started working here. All the pictures we have, it has like this almost personified, appeal to it whenever it's staked up. But then it has like this appeal of, that flowing, moving water whenever it's just kind of let to weep and do what it does.
So moving right along, you might be thinking, man, there's, not a lot of flash, but flash can bring a lot to that focal point planting. And that's why here at number 11, had to throw in Acer palmatum, peaches and cream. Y'all, talk about a reticulated. I've even had talking to Brian off camera, and he indicated, he's like, man, in his opinion, he thinks that peaches and cream right now is probably the best reticulated Japanese maple that's in the trade right now. Everyone has opinions, but he thinks peaches and cream, and it does, man. It is intense. Those colors, those pink, peachy colors in the spring, and then even during the summer as it moves into those darker colors before going into fall, man, peaches and cream just brings it every day.
I know. I feel bad about this tree because, from my understanding, it kind of gets mixed up in the trade, and some other cultivars get swapped around. But I've seen a true peaches and cream at Matt and Tim's mom and dad's place, and it's kind of almost like this wall of color. It's maybe about, I don't know, like 3 foot wide by about like 6-7 foot tall, and it just has like these beautiful full leaves. I mean, it has these huge fat leaves, and then you see that color in it with that slow kind of blush of that like little peach color, that little nice pink creamy color, and it just really just does have like this crazy effect on each single leaf. And then to see kind of that whole entire tree is just really cool. And I like peaches and cream for sure.
And to keep it kind of moving, when we talked about Osakazuki being that fall focal point, I had to throw this next one at number 10 as an extreme spring interest focal point. But number 10, we have Acer palmatum, Mila.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tree that I was introduced to, maybe like a year or two into being a part of MrMaple. And yeah, I was just like kind of enamored by beautiful spring color that it has, and it's definitely one that I know a lot of the collectors go a little crazy for during the open houses, and then you see them find one, pick it up, and you're like, well, I understand that.
Well, I think Mila's probably, definitely when you want to talk about like spring interest Japanese maples, that I almost think it's, kind of part of that whole, trifecta of like, you can add that as like, if you had to name 3 trees that bring it consistently every year in the spring, Mila would have to be on that list as one of the most intense, just those pinks and reds, and kind of like it's almost like it can almost be hard to describe exactly what that color is on Mila during the spring, because it changes and kind of moves. But I mean, it's just one of the most intense spring interest Japanese maples, in my opinion. Okay, and so let's keep that splash going, talking about Mila, man. And this one, like, it just seems like goes in. Man, Acer palmatum Firefly. Again, we talked about the chameleon maple, Gable's Glory. Firefly, another one of those. Spring interest, summer interest, fall interest. It's one of those, man. Like, what color is Firefly, Corbin?
Yeah, I guess I would say it depends.
It depends, right? Right. It's one of those that's constantly changing. Check out those photos. And I would probably say it's probably the one tree that we get accused the most of using some type of Photoshop on photo-wise, because the colors are so intense.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tree where you can just kind of see all the influence in it. I mean, to have like a Sumigaki border, and then to have like this weird, it goes green, white, it goes dark red, it goes purple, and then to be reticulated on top of that. It is a strange plant, man. I'll be honest, I'm very enamored by this plant. We actually have 2 on the nursery. I got to dig one up from Matt's yard, I guess it was about a year ago. It might have been 2 years ago at this point, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, I got to dig this up. It looked one color. I think it looked like this kind of nice dark kind of green color, maybe a little bit of purple infused in it. And then I take it and I put it in a full sun location, and man, it went fire truck red with like kinds of like little blushings of purple. And then that reticulation is still really strong. And then to go over to the one that's in the front office, a little bit more shade, maybe still getting a little bit of sun, but to have just kind of like that green peeking through, with like kind of a lighter pinky red. Oh man, I love this tree. And like I was saying earlier about the Gable's Glory, this is a tree where the gradient, where the full tree really tells the whole story, where you get to see all those different colors, how Firefly looks in different, micro conditions.
Okay, guys, moving right along. We're in our top 10 already. Moving into number 8. Man, had to bring some yellow to the landscape. Focal point planting. Had to go with Acer palmatum Summer Gold.
Yeah, man. Summer new, summer gold, man. You know what I'm saying? But this is a tree. I mean, I didn't really understand it whenever I first got here, and that was the yellow dance era of things, maybe that first year of me being here, and Tim kind of playing this bit of summer gold, doing the
pair everything with the summer gold, do the Carlton dance.
Exactly, which, I love that little thing going on, but as I kind of get more and more into plants, to have a summer gold is a must. To go over to Brian Rule's garden and to see his summer gold, where it just has this like beautiful buttery yellow color at the bottom. Then as you slowly move up to the more sun exposed leaves, they just slowly start like getting lighter and lighter until it's like almost like this completely white color with like this thin red margin across, like near the edge of the leaf, just kind of highlighting it. And then to see all those little white leaves and yellow leaves stacked on top of each other, outlined with that red kind of variegation that it gets if you put it in the sun. Holy beep. Like that's like a, oh my gosh, moment.
You're not lying. I've got one, and this year I moved it so that I have it in full sun. And the way it leaves out, like you talk about with that red border, that intense yellow with that red border, and pushing it with the sun, full day sun. And I'll tell you what, it ate up the sun. I realize where zone 6B might be harder once you start getting into that zone 8, in hotter climates. It might take some time to get established. But man, that red border and that yellow, and then as moving into the summer, I wouldn't say that it, like sometimes we talk about it green, like plants will go green. It never fully goes green. It kind of gets this kind of more limey color, light color. So even when you start to get more chlorophyll in the leaves, it's not that highlighter yellow you get in the spring with that red border, but it's still much more yellow and lighter than anything else that I have in the garden. And man, once those summer flushes came on this year, the red summer flush, and I mean some of the growth, I'm talking about some of those flushes, man, a foot and a half. So has some vigor to it. Like I say, I am pushing it in the full sun, but man, that yellow is true. And then everything else I have around it that's a little darker, that darker green from the summer, man, it is just bringing it out even more, making itself pop and everything else around it pop. Yeah,
before we go to the next one, though, check out Anne Irene. I'll say that too. That's kind of one, and it's on the same kind of level of Summer Gold. I don't know if that's a hot take or not. Anne Irene sport off of a Summer Gold. Beautiful ruffled edge on the leaf, unlike anything else. Beautiful variegation during the springtime. Very akin to something like Golden Falls, where you're kind of getting that orange border. Mm-hmm. If you like Summer Gold, you might be a little bit of a newer collector. Anne Irene, beautiful thing to pick up as well.
So to keep this moving along, coming in at number 7, I had to. This is a non-palmatum, but bring in some white. And there's a lot of we could talk about Ukigumo, and some of the different white ones out there. But for a focal point planting, I had to go with Acer campestre Carnival, because we're talking about a white variegation. A lot of times when we start getting into some of those white variegated, we got to worry about sun exposure. Man, Carnival, you can throw this into full sun. If you have a spot that you have full sun, you can throw this into full sun. It's going to eat it up and bring some of the most intense white to your garden landscape. Man, it's going to bring it as a focal point. And then you know what? It also has a fall.
Yeah, Carnival, a European field maple, a great tree. This is a tree, dude, I kicked myself in the butt thinking about this, because it's like we've had so many awesome specimens, and I haven't ever ponied up to purchase one of these, man. I think I'm a little fearful of it, just because of like that variegation, even though I know, my friend Logan has this, I think in Charlotte. He's got it on his back porch of his patio, just chilling there. It's in a container, and it's handling pretty good sun. And Talon has one in Oregon that's looking pretty baller. I will say, I think this tree, for me personally, I'd love to see it on a standard more, because I like having that verticality. It's kind of more of like a bushier tree if you're not cutting it back, to kind of give you that one sort of kind of leader. But oh my gosh, man, you talk about some of the widest looking trees out there, man. This thing's putting mayonnaise on everything.
Yeah, man. Most white trees you throw out in full sun are going to bake, are going to cook. And I think the trick with Carnival is watering. I think that it can eat up the full sun, but I think ones where I've seen people struggle with it is that it's overwatering. I think with Carnival, it doesn't. You think it does, and it's that's that trick with it being white, and as white as it is, you tend to think I need to baby this and take care of it, and I think sometimes we over take care of it, and this is one of those, put it in the sun, good soil that will drain, but man, I think the trick is sometimes we overwater it, especially the that particular one, but like I say, it's such a tank and it's white that it had to be on this list all the way at number 7, had to make it. Okay, guys, coming in at number 6. Hey, man, kind of funny. We were just talking about this off camera that this might be one of your next purchases, but we're coming in at number 6, Acer palmatum butterfly.
Oh my gosh, man. This is a tree. I don't want to make that same mistake as I did with the Carnival, man. I want to pick one of these up, but sometimes it's hard, man. It's like, I think with kind of so many options, it's hard to kind of pick a tree. And I think I've seen that, like, you get that kind of choice paralysis, and I think I get scared, man, but this is a tree I need to take a leap of faith on, man. It's not even a leap of faith. It's more like a calculated decision, because it's like, I've seen this in Cindy Bowles' garden, looking like I would go take that from her garden, man, if I could, man. If I could get away with it, I'd go get that tree. I've seen it in Matt and Tim's mom's garden, just looking fantastic, and I've seen it in 1 gallons. It's just like, at any size, this thing doesn't miss, and I think like that's important for a focal garden. I know it really just pulls my attention, and I love just like that play. You want consistent white color, you want a lot of white color. I mean, those 2 options we just gave you with Carnival and Butterfly, you are not going to be disappointed. Like, Butterfly is one of the most amazing trees that I've seen.
Well, I mean, you just talk about that, with the leaf structure, you get some kind of that swirling going on. During the spring, you can get some of that pink variegation going on. And then as you get into the summer, when you kind of get that white and green contrast against each other. Now, this is one that you can see reversion on, so you do have to be conscious of that to remove the all green. But man, when you find one of these in the landscape that's been taken care of with the, cutting back any variegation or reversion, if it happens, man, is going to be stunning. And like I say, like some of that swirling in the leaves, the pinks that you get, early spring, and then how those colors change between the white and green. I mean, it's one of those, again, as a focal point planting. If you're driving down the street and someone had one of these in their front yard, you're going to stop and say, what is that? Okay, guys, we're getting into the top 5 focal point plantings, and have to come in with, at number 5, Acer oliveranum hot blonde, and talk about, man, spring color, then going, that red pink kind of, like you say, kind of get an idea of what fall is going to be like. But man, those pinks, and then moving into those yellows, and then when you get back into fall, man, seeing hot blonde with my own eyes, I do think it is probably the only other tree out there that truly rivals Osakazuki for the red that it does during the fall.
Yeah, dude, it's hard not to feel like a booty kisser to Matt and Tim on this one, man, because, like, it really is. It's like there are certain things I think that are, like, important in the maple game, and I think as a collector, as somebody who's, I haven't been in the nursery industry very long, just almost 3 years now. But you kind of start to understand, like, the weight of certain trees, like we were talking about with, like, that Sengu Kaku, with Makawe Atsubusa. Like, you can feel, like, kind of the ripples of, like, what happened whenever they got put into the trade. And for me, I don't really think like the weight of this tree really set in until I started thinking about it from more of a business perspective too, which is like, I know it's a weirder thing to talk about on the podcast maybe, but it's like, this is a tree that will work in just about, most of the United States. I mean, at least 70%.
Heat tolerant.
Yeah, exactly.
Sun tolerant.
It leaves out late to avoid, that cold snaps, those late frosts, and it puts on growth. Like, I really didn't understand like how important I think like this tree will be to like the nursery trade until maybe a couple months ago, honestly. And it really is insane because we have such a large stock plan of this. So we have a couple large ones, and we didn't put it in the ground but 2 years ago, and I mean it's putting on so much. I mean, I wouldn't say it's doubled in size, but it's probably put on a quarter.
Doubled in size.
It almost looks like it, man. I'd say it's at least got about at least a third or a quarter as big as it used to be. Like, I mean, it's so huge, and yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, during fall time, holy cow, man! It's like you just went through. It's like if you combine Summer Gold and Osakazuki together, but then you were like, all right, let's throw in some hot heat tolerant like maples, and like that. It's just literally like this plant that I think will have implications in the nursery industry for a long time as we continue forward.
And it already has. I mean, it really already has. And you talk about like it really sinking in. Man, for me, it really sunk in when we went to Canada.
Yes.
And going to visit another nursery and walking into their greenhouse and seeing them growing hot blonde. And we could talk about like the eye test, the smell test, something that passes. The number of other nurserymen who are growing hot blonde that I've heard with my own ears, have talked to them myself, that sing the praises of hot blonde, of just how tough it is. And that's the whole thing, is when you can find a tree that is tough but has ornamental value, that lives up to that focal point where it's going to bring that ornamental value, man, that's just bringing something. Because, as a landscaper, as a gardener, you want something that when you have it in there is going to bring it every time, year after year. You don't want to have to struggle with it. You want it to bring it. And Hot Blonde is one of those. And, I could remember several years ago, Hot Blonde was, some of these cultivars, oh, it sells out so quick. Why don't you have Hot Blonde? Well, now we're starting to see it, man, that we see it being grown in Europe. We see it being grown up in Canada. We see it being grown around the world because it truly is. And it wouldn't surprise me that in 20 years from now that we're sitting here talking about, hey, I saw Hot Blonde as a street tree somewhere throughout the country or someplace else.
Or, I mean, even like Lowe's, man. Like, that's like kind of like, I don't know if this is a hot take or whatever, but I really think that Hot Blonde has the potential to be like, akin to Bloodgood and that sort of thing. Like, as time continues, and, maybe mark my words down. Maybe if I'm wrong, erase this part of the podcast. But I really think that that's a special tree for sure.
Okay, coming in at number 4, we got us a lace leaf with flash that's going to bring it to your garden, that focal point, Acer palmatum, Hanamatoi.
Yeah, this was one of my first loves, man. This is an awesome, amazing tree. The very first maple tree that I got. Don't ask me where it is, but it's just super amazing, especially to see this in like a fully grown and in a large specimen. It's super amazing.
Pinks, reds, I actually think that the foliage as a lace leaf is different than other lace leaves. There's so many different lace leaves out there, but man, seeing one of these in the landscape with the, this is another one of those with those pinks and reds, man, you're going to get those like I kind of used it with Baldsmith, but man, it really brings this 3D effect to it, especially if you have some sun shining through it, hitting off of it. it's just going to make your landscape really, really pop, especially using it as a focal point with other trees around it. You know, having those reds and those pinks, man, you throw in some of these that get some of those yellows, throw in that summer gold with that yellow against it, man, throw in that Ryusin with that green up against it, man. It's not only is it going to make all those other trees pop, but those other trees make it pop. And it just kind of creates this presence of, man, like whenever I see a nice Hanamatoi in the landscape, I just get this presence like, man, this tree is what's making everything else around it pop even more, make the presence of that space pop even more.
Yeah, I'm just like sitting here thinking, and I probably look like I had the 1,000 yard stare right there for a second, but I'm just sitting here, I'm like, what do I like Hanamatoi more as? Do I like it more as like this Lillian Jewel looking thing? Where, I mean, I think Lillian's Jewel is a great tree to describe like Hanamatoi too.
Oh, absolutely.
Like if you hold those two together, I mean, Hanamatoi is the upright, you know, palmate style leaf version of Hanamatoi. Like,
right.
I don't know if that's a hot take too, man. I might be getting flamed in that comment section right now, but I'm like, you put those two together, they're going to show a lot of similar colors, and they are similar in the same way that, like, if you put Lillian's Jewel in the shade, you're going to pull a lot more of those greens and whites out. Mm-hmm. And same with Hanamatoi, but if you put them in the sun, oh man, those fiery reds, those kind of maroonish reds mixed with the hot pinks, they're going to come to play, man. And I think that's awesome. Like, I love choice. Like, I like being able to decide what goes where, and that it doesn't just stop at picking the plant up, you know. It's like, now it's my decision. It's time to go put this in the garden. Where do I put it? And Hanamatoi, it's one of those trees that's just kind of magical, man. You see all these kind of variegation going on, but then I've seen parts of Hanamatoi where it just throws like a sport. It just throws like a branch full sport, and it's either completely pink, it's completely white, and then it's just surrounded by that beautiful kind of, texture of the rest of the leaves with their variegation. And it's a magical thing. Getting to go to Tsukasa Maple, where it was introduced, getting to meet Yutaka Tanaka was super awesome. And to be in like the presence of where like Hanamatoi was found, you know, Tsukasa, Silhouette, like all these great trees, and like to just kind of get an idea of what, you know, that guy had going on in his life to find such an amazing tree like this was just super cool. And yeah, I mean, Hanamatoi, you definitely want one in your garden.
Okay, moving right along, coming in at number 3. We have Acer palmatum Red Panda. Man, we're talking about the Makawa variant. We have Makawa all the way back at number 24, and we've got Red Panda at number 3. And I had to throw it on here as a focal point because, man, you know, I explained to Brian, was talking to Brian, and I said, you know, there was a part of me early on with Red Panda that my experience with it, my exposure to it was, yeah, I see all this and then all the hype about it. But man, Brian has a Red Panda as part of his focal point in his backyard part of the garden. And it's vigorous. It's the most intense red. It holds that red the longest. And like I said, the vigor on it, man, like I think it's more vigorous than Makawa Yatsubusa is. And I think the key is in full sun. But man, it eats it up. It holds that red. And then even when you get into the late summer months, man, it is still pushing off that new summer flush red growth on top of it. Man, if you put a Red Panda as a focal point, people are going to see it and know it. And who doesn't like a red Makawa?
Yeah, dude, you could put... I'm trying to think of some, you know, more basic trees, man. Like, I can't think of something boring enough to kind of overshadow this. Like, if you put this in a forest of trees, I mean, obviously it's going to stand out. If you put this next to a million other Makawas, it's going to stand out. If you put this next to evergreens. That's going to make it look better because it's going to pop on the background of that. It's just like, this is a tree you could try your hardest to hide away from everybody, and it's still going to get attention. Like, I really enjoy this tree. I'll be honest, I didn't really understand the hype whenever I first started here because, like, the hype train was so crazy. Sean was in there making Facebook posts trying to get people riled up, and I was like, oh, well, I can't be that crazy. And then it's like this year and last year, go over to Brian's house. I'm like, and for the audience listening, I have my mouth hitting the table right now because it just looks so awesome. I mean, Brian has a couple hundred trees in his backyard, and I mean, that red panda like stands out like it's just like this beacon of a tree, which is pretty crazy because if you've ever seen Brian's garden, all those trees, I mean, like, it's like a battle royale for your attention, man. It's just like all these amazing trees, and somehow red panda pulls your attention. Like, does it get much more focal point than that?
It doesn't. And that's like you described it perfectly. Like, does it, like, it doesn't matter what situation you, and I'm like I say, I'm like you, like I was part of that building, stuff up and posting stuff to playing off that hype that people were building. And even, like I say myself, I'm like, what do I really think about this? And then talking about Brian's is what made me a believer. And then it even confirmed it more this last spring going out to Buckholz, and they have one similar in size that they put in the ground, and seeing like, dude, that one's doing the exact same thing Brian's is doing. And then talking to like, and seeing photos of MJ has posted them of his in his yard, and then going to Portland and talking to Anton Clemens and him saying, oh, I got one and I know the hype, but it being legit. Like, that's just confirmation from experienced growers, people that know what they're talking about, saying this is legit. And like I say, seeing it with your own eyes, like, because there's, people out there like, oh, my seedling leaves out red. Nothing like this. That's why it had to come in at number 3. Okay, so moving, we got 2 left at number 2. And this one I kind of picked at number 2 because it's kind of a whole category. Matt and Tim, we have a podcast. Go check it out. It's the top of these. But I had to pick this particular cultivar because I just recently saw one out at Talon's place looking just prime. But we're talking Acer Palmatum Eye Candy. But, man, really, at number 2 for a focal point, man, you can really throw in any of the Higaseyama-style Japanese maples as a focal point planting. It's going to stand out. That variegation, that reticulation. I mean, like, all those Higaseyama styles, along with, like, Eye Candy, man, it just brings it. Any of them will bring it. They've got it all. They've got the different colors, the different, it's probably, as a number 2, I think it is probably one of the most worthy focal point trees.
Yeah, Eye Candy, I mean, it's definitely not going to leave a sour taste in your mouth, that's for sure. This thing is sweet. I mean, the first time I was exposed to this, we were shooting a video out in at Evelyn and Norm's house, Matt and Tim's mom and dad. Tim was like super excited, and he was just like, oh man, like, this Eye Candy's looking great. And I was like, well, what the heck is that? And then we get over there, and he's going full crazy mode, and I'm just happy to be there because I just love being around the passion that they have about maples. And he's like talking about the variegation of the leaf, and I was like, okay, well, like, that looks cool. But then I go to shoot the B-roll for that, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, these leaves are so tiny. They have so much detail, so much beautiful variegation in them. And it's like a beautiful kind of pink, yellow, green kind of gradient going on over the whole entire tree. And that was cool. That was like maybe like towards the end of springtime we shot that. And then I believe maybe a year or 2 after, we go to Buckholz, and I get to see Talon's huge Eye Candies after Matt and Tim purchased Buckholz. And to see those 2 huge specimens of Eye Candy was just like super, super amazing. Because they just kind of like, I talk about like this kind of cathedral growth that stuff puts on, but there are like some plants that just have like the perfect amount of symmetrical growth plus like the perfect structure that almost looks like a firework to me in the garden. I think Shishigashira kind of has that look, and same thing with like maybe like Goshiki Kotohime and like those sort of like super tight shingling habit trees. But eye candy with like just the combination of its growth habit plus the colors, I mean, it looks like 4th of July out there. And I think like a lot of people, some of my favorite colors in maples are like that pink, white, and green kind of combo. And this thing's just like hitting on so many cylinders. And I mean, it's just like red panda in a way. It's like you can't not look at this tree.
Okay. Coming up on number 1, and let us know in the comments what your number 1 focal point planting is. We love to hear it. And if you're not, don't comment on YouTube, get to that Facebook group and post some pictures and let us know what trees you like to use as your focal point plantings. But coming in at number 1, we have Acer palmatum, Geisha Gone Wild.
Yeah, man, I was actually thinking about this tree the other day. I was like, man, what's Talon doing up so late watching those crazy advertisements, man? Because, yeah, I mean, that's what I mean, obviously the name has some hints to some of that late night television advertisement. And I'll be honest, whenever I was, too small to be watching that stuff, I would wake up in the middle of the night and see it. And I think like this tree kind of has that same appeal. It's a tree that catches your attention, man. And like that name it's very funny. But it is just like a tree that's all about grabbing your attention. And I think what kind of put this tree in perspective for me was the fact I went out to a brewery. I think it was like after the hurricane and everything had happened, out in Asheville. I can't remember the name of the brewery. But I'm just like walking around, looking at all the garden and stuff. And then at the front door of this brewery, there's 2 6-foot-tall Geisha Gone Wilds chilling there. And I was like just sitting there, sipping on my beer. I was like looking over there at those trees. And I was like, what the heck is that? What is that, man? That can't be like a Japanese maple here. Like this brewery isn't cool enough to have like some crazy variegated thing. Finally went up, went to looking. And it's pretty recognizable whenever you see it from a distance and you get up close to it and it still had the tag on there. I was like, Geisha Gone Wild, man. This is kind of crazy. It's like, wow, like this is a tree from Oregon. It's all the way here and it's like got planted here by some, contractors who, might not even be a maple collector. Like that's how crazy this tree is that, it got put there.
Pink. You got pink, you got, swirling, you've got variegation, you've got, depending on where you're at, but like in a lot of locations, man, it handles heat well, it handles sun well. And I mean, you're just talking about such a intense, unique tree. Man, if you throw this in your landscape and build around it, it's going to stand out as that focal point planting. And, I can't think of anything else, but you talking about, this being a Talon Buckles introduction. I always think with Geisha Gone Wild, when we were there for maybe one of the Maple Societies, it may be a trip, but we were at someone else's house that they had a get together, and there's a Geisha Gone Wild in their front yard. And we're walking up the driveway, and I look at Talon, and I just had to ask him, Talon, what's it like looking or going through someone's garden and seeing a tree that because you talk about the one here in Asheville, but like go and say, like, what's it like? That's your tree. You introduced that. You found that sport. You put it into the trade. Like, what's it like seeing it in other people's gardens? He's just like, it's just very humbling. And, it's just one of those trees, man. It had to make number 1 as the top focal point because it's going to bring it every time. And one reason is, man, I bought this as a gift for a friend, and I've seen it with my own eyes at his place. Like you say, you were at the brewery and you're like, what is that over there? Is that what I think it is? Man, I've seen this tree in my buddy's front yard in Memphis stop traffic. I've seen cars come to a complete stop because of just the intense pink variegation. You get some whites in there, you get, and into summer you get some of those greens in there, but you still have that variegation. Man, it had to make that number one spot.
Man, that was a great list of plants right there.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you going through them with me. Hey guys, we appreciate you. If you made it this long, man, we appreciate it. Please give us a like, subscribe, or share. Let your friends know about us. But more, we're thankful that we get to talk about trees, and we're able to do it because of you. We're thankful for that, and we know that. And it's because of you going to MrMaple.com that we're able to sit here and make these lists and have collector's corners and shoot cultivar highlights and interview other nurserymen and do all these things. It's because of y'all out there, and we're truly appreciative.
Yeah, man. Guys, thanks for watching. Remember, take care.
God bless.
Have a great day.